Self-doubt can hold people back from reaching their full potential, whether in their careers, relationships, or personal growth. Confidence is a skill that can be developed, but what are the most effective strategies to overcome negative self-talk and build lasting self-assurance? In this interview series, we're talking to mindset coaches, psychologists, authors, and other experts who can share actionable insights on overcoming self-doubt and cultivating confidence. As a part of this series, we have the pleasure of interviewing Jen Polt of Lost World. Meet content creator, coach, authenticity warrior, professional hype woman, and speaker Jen Polt. If you could design a best friend who is equal parts motivational speaker, confidence coach, and comedian, then you would have Jen. In spring 2020, Jen started a passion project creating image and confidence content for women over 40. She saw the need for social media messaging that celebrated midlife and embraced the joys and freedoms that come with aging. Jen wanted to encourage women to love themselves just the way they are and to turn the dial up instead of fading away. Over the past 5 years, her platforms, known as Making Up for Lost Time, have grown to over 200,000 members around the world who follow her for messages of radical self-love, for easy beauty tutorials and style tips, and for her self-deprecating humor and best friend forever-like delivery. In the spring of 2023, Jen left her 25-year sales career in corporate America to pursue the ultimate midlife pivot, starting her own business as a confidence coach and motivational speaker and launching her website, glostworld.com, all while going through an unexpected divorce and becoming suddenly single at 52. Jen's on a mission to help you find your fabulous again. Jen, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Stanley. How are you? Thanks
I'm
for having me.
I'm fabulous.
Good.
Does that work?
Yeah, sure does.
Can you take a minute and tell us how you got there? It sounds like you've done a little bit of change over the last 5 years, and I'm a big fan of positive change. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, and it was an unexpected change. I always like to tell people I'm a, unexpected influencer and an accidental entrepreneur. It all kind of started as a passion project. I was in sales and training. I was a sales and training executive in the beauty world. And when COVID lockdown happened, I was longing for connection. I wanted to connect with people, and I started turning to social media. And I was in a few different Facebook groups with women my age, and I started to create some content around beauty and style and those kind of things. We were doing style challenges, getting dressed up to go to dinner at our dining room tables or to go get the mail. So it was this feeling of camaraderie that I really enjoyed, and that feeling of community that I was missing being locked in at home. And my content started to get some interest from the women in the group, and they started to ask about, how can I follow you? Are you on Instagram? And I thought, yeah, I'm on Instagram, but I started it years ago. I had 3 pictures up there. There was nothing going on there. And I thought, well, why not? Why don't I just take what I'm creating here for these private groups and pop it on Instagram, and they can find me there. And that's how it all started. And within a couple years, I had 100,000 followers. And I started to look at it and think, could I make a career out of doing something that I genuinely love? And I was drawing from a lot of my corporate skill set, my sales training, my management, my mentoring, coaching skill set. But I was also talking about things that I'm very passionate about. And yes, I love beauty and I love style and clothes, but what I'm really passionate about is helping women, especially, see themselves in their best light, no matter what their age is. Having mentored younger women as a teacher and as a leader in corporate, and now I create mostly for women in midlife, like myself, and just wanting women to find themselves again, because I feel we get a little lost in some of the roles that society wants us to play, and many of us get to this midlife time, and some of those roles shift, and we start to think, well, who am I if I'm not actively all of these other roles? And so I started to lean into it, and here I am. 2 years ago, I quit my corporate career and decided to take a chance on myself and do this full time.
Do you miss it?
No, I'm no longer triggered by the sound of a Microsoft Teams call. Zoom meetings don't give me a pit in my stomach. They're usually something fun like this. And so, yeah, it took some time though. I mean, my friend and I laugh about it. We both left around the same time. And I said, I feel like you kind of have to walk through that hazmat tunnel with the suit on where they spray you down before you can get out of your suit. I feel like there's that transition tunnel where you just have to get all that stuff sprayed off of you. And it took a little time to get out of that mindset of the grinding and it's never enough and to really start to lean into creative pursuits and things that felt good in my soul again.
See, you're at the stage in life that I'm at as well. I identify with it. You love to work, you want to work, you're ready to roll, but you don't want to work on stuff you don't want to work on.
Yeah. And you're not hung up on, I think it's strange. I felt, my 20s and 30s, I felt there was always that feeling of what's the next step? What's your 5-year plan? What's the next rung in the ladder and all of those things. And we get brainwashed into that thinking when we get out of college, well, where are you going to go? And what's your 5-year, 10-year plan and all those things. And then there's something that happens at some point, at least it did for me, where I was like, I just want to be happy doing what I want to do. As long as I can make enough money to live the kind of life I want to live. I don't need to be a millionaire. I want to be comfortable. But also that feeling of I want to find some joy and I'm less hung up on what the title says on my business card as long as it feels good. And I feel like I'm tapping into the things that I'm good at and what I think I'm here for.
The funny thing about this is, on a spiritual level, it's like you let go. And the minute you let go, everything started coming to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really was strange. I mean, it was a lot of things at once. I had put that sort of plan in motion about 9 months before I finally, pulled the trigger on the plan and walked away from the corporate life. And then when it happened, I had a lot of tumult in my own personal life that I wasn't expecting. And so it was everything at once. It was kind of like the tablecloth got pulled out from underneath the plates. And it was, it's a lot of change at once and a lot of loss at once, losing your teams and losing the people, your friendships with your corporate teams, and then, a long-term relationship. But I also feel like sometimes things get moved out of your way so that you can move forward.
I always say that when you clear things out, you make room for something better to enter.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Absolutely.
and it's not always easy and you don't always see it at the time. I mean, I remember a few years back, I had a very client who paid me very well for many, many,
Hmm.
many years, but I couldn't stand the work anymore.
Yeah.
And so we got to a point where it was a good time, and I just said, I need to go. And
Yeah.
and a couple of people said, why are you doing that? He's a good client on this. I go, it's not what I want to do. And
Yeah. It's that trade-off.
and I had faith that something else would come along. And it did.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
did. Other things are continuing to come along. It's I'm all about, and I just one of the things I tell people all the time. People say, well, it's great that you're spending all your time on your passion and everything. You're at a point in life where you're semi-retired, which by the way, I work probably 50 hours a week, so I don't know how semi-retired I am.
Semi
But
what?
yeah, but see, the problem is people see me out walking all the time, and so they assume I'm retired. But the reality
Right.
is I'm working, and a lot of what I do is the thinking and everything
Sure.
else. But I always encourage people, even if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, spend some time every day on your passion
For sure.
because no one else is going to do it for you. And
Yeah.
your boss, unless you're very lucky, your boss doesn't care about your passion.
Hmm.
Job doesn't care about your passion and all those types of things. So spend some time on yourself. And if you can
That's
get to a point where you can spend more time on it, all the better. And you did something else that I always tell people. I tell people, don't quit your day job while you're building your dream job. And
right.
it
100%.
and it sounds to me like you did that. Um,
Yeah.
you had those nasty little things called bills.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times people think it has to be a big leap. And I think a lot of times, people who don't know my story, they hear what I've done and they're like, oh, I could never do that. How did you? And I was like, wait a second. I built this for 3 years before I finally made the leap. And it was, little jumps here, there, and it was basically working 2 full-time jobs for the better part of 2 years to build
Yeah.
this side so that I had an opportunity that felt, I knew that I was doing well, only focusing on that with part of my energies. And I thought if I could give it 100%, what could it look like? And that's when I felt like, okay, I'm at this tipping point where if I don't take the opportunity, I'm going to regret it. And I'm so glad I did.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Sure.
What you did and are continuing to do and will continue to do, it's all obviously amazing. Um, this is a loaded question here.
I'm ready.
Are you doing all these things because you're special? Can other people do these things?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. I think sometimes people, they'll see someone and they'll think, oh, well, I'm not like them, or I don't have this, or and when I speak, a lot of my speaking engagements are around this idea of take all of your talents, all of these transferable skills, and design a job description that you love. And so many people can do what I do. You don't have to do it the way I do it. And I think that's where people get hung up. They'll see someone like me who's silly and comfortable in front of a camera and they think, oh, I've got to be this big personality in order to do what Jen does. Well, no, you don't. I mean, you could be someone who knows how to do cross stitching and teach people how to do it and never show your face. I mean, there's talents and skill sets that we have that other people want to learn how to do. And you can share those talents and skills online in however way you want to. And I think there is that framework sometimes that we see with so many people on social media and they seem like a big personality, but there are also people who are equally successful that are a little bit quieter or don't even show their face and just do, tips and tutorials and all kinds of things on different projects and woodworking and all kinds of things. So there's an opportunity, especially in this social media landscape, for people to really say, why couldn't I take my passions and make it into a job that I really love to do, or I get to lean into those things most of the time instead of some of the time.
As I would put it, you don't need to create another Jen Polt.
No, no. And that's the whole point.
You
And I
need to
think,
create yourself.
yeah, you get hung up on it. And I think it's a big lesson I've learned over the last few years because when you start doing something like this, you follow people who also do things like what
Mhm.
you're doing. And then you can sometimes get in your head of, well, this is what they're doing and they're always here and they do this way and they show things off this way and their setup is really beautiful and they have this beautiful studio they film. You can get in your head. And the funniest thing is that my brand was basically built on live conversations in what I call my lady cave, my bedroom that I outfitted with my clothing racks and my vanity table. And half the time there's, cockeyed things in the closet and there's a hammer on a dresser for no apparent reason. I don't know why, something in the background I didn't notice as we were filming, but it wasn't slick and it wasn't editorial, but it was me showing up as me, talking to people who related to me. And I am the brand. And so it's the more authentic I am, the more loyal my community became. And it wasn't about trying to be a carbon copy of someone else. That's the whole point.
That's wonderful advice that you're giving. Do you, this whole experience that you've gone through the last 5 years, on some level, have you amazed yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and it's one of those things sometimes I do an exercise with a lot of my coaching clients and I tell them, I call it success resume. Sometimes we get to a place where we start to lose confidence and sometimes when we've arrived at a place on the journey, we forgot all the roads we traveled to get to that place. And sometimes it's helpful to look back on your timeline up until now, both professionally and personally, and to say, wow, I took some chances on myself, or I did this, or I moved away from my hometown, and 90% of the people that lived there never did. And I went to school where I knew no one, or, some of these choices and things that we do that we kind of sort of forgot created who we are. And so I think sometimes when I look back on what I've had to learn in order to get to this point, or how hard I worked multiple jobs to get to this point, all of the technology that was not familiar, platforms I don't know, I'm still learning things. I still don't think I'm good at some things. And I feel like I'm getting better at others. But the feeling of being a student again has been really wonderful. And to be in my 50s at this point, and still challenging myself. I want to learn new things.
You never want to stop.
No, and I don't feel too old to be doing this, or, I think so many people think this kind of career is for the young, and I am young. So I'm just, I'm just going with it.
You are. I mean,
right.
You're just getting warmed up.
That's right. I'm just stretching my muscles.
Hear Jen roar.
That's right. Careful. Don't encourage me.
I don't have a problem with that. I personally, I admire strong women.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, we're tough stuff.
I do. Tough. I think the world might be a little better place if it was run by some strong women.
I agree. Yeah. I'm glad we're on the same page, Stanley.
I'm all behind that. So would it be safe to say, okay, let's switch gears a minute.
Sure.
Belief. Belief. I always tell people that one of the key things to success is belief in your abilities, your talents, and your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But even people who believe in their abilities, talents, and ideas still can have self-doubt, can't they?
All the time, every day, all the time. I mean, I've had a successful career. I know I'm a good mentor. I know I'm a good coach, all of the things. And there are moments when I think, am I really qualified to be doing this? I have a coach who said to me, she said, imposter syndrome is your mind's way of telling you you're trying something you've never done before. And I think it's such a great way to reframe it. And it's really helped me in a lot of ways. In those moments when that starts to creep in a little, I think to myself, well, this is because you're stretching and you're trying something you've never done before. And that's when, too, I think it helps to go back to success resume kind of stuff, where you can say, well, here's proof positive of moments when I did exactly this. I tried something that I didn't think I could do, and I did it, and I learned it, and I worked in an industry that I didn't know, and I learned it. And I have a history. If history is a predictor of the future, I have successful history that has shown me that I can try things I've never done before and be successful at them. And so why would I think now that this wouldn't be the same predictor for me? So that's always helpful. And then I think it's sometimes we get focused on the big win or the end game or the finish line instead of celebrating the little wins along the way. And sometimes it's the little wins, the little acts of courage, the little learnings, and celebrating those things builds the confidence muscle so that we can keep going and moving forward. And so I'm not one of those people who is, toxic positivity of you just have to believe, because sometimes I just don't. Sometimes I just sit on my couch and I get just paralyzed with self-doubt, but then I have to just move. It's, it's like you talked about earlier, we talked about your weight loss journey. It's like you just have to start moving, and the inertia, the body in motion stays in motion, the mind in motion stays in motion, and the inspiration in motion stays in motion. And that's the biggest piece of it for me.
You talked about celebrating small wins. That is so important. Just little victories. And, and a lot of people say, they go, do you celebrate the holidays? Do you celebrate this? Do you celebrate that? And my response is, I celebrate every day.
Yeah.
To me, every day is a holiday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it is. It's how you move through the world. I mean, I think like in any kind of thing, you don't want to just have, it shouldn't be romantic only on Valentine's Day. You should have that all the time. There's just those things that, the day-to-day living of celebrating yourself and being proud of yourself. And sometimes I think we're not wired necessarily to just sit back and reflect and say, you know what, I did that damn thing.
Yeah,
But it's important
we
to do.
just want the dopamine hits. We want the
Right.
instant gratification. And yours is more of a long-term approach. Steady,
Yeah.
steady, steady, steady.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's less terrifying for people when they hear my story and I tell them, listen, I didn't, climb Everest in a week. Like you do these little things, these little moves, and test and learn and test and learn and test and learn. And then you go, okay, I think I could do that. And we
Yeah.
and then I take a little bit bigger leap and I try a different thing. And so that was so much of what I did in the first few years of this, was just to really test and learn what kind of content worked, what my community wanted to hear, who I was really creating for, who was connecting with what I was doing, and really honing in on my audience. And but it gave me time to figure it out. And I thought that was it was a comfortable way for me to build this. As unexpected as it all was, I recommend it for other people too, because then you don't feel like you have to be an expert. You're just testing and learning right now.
Can we talk about motivation for a minute?
Sure.
Do you consider yourself a motivated person?
Yes and no. I mean, I have my moments of high motivation when I'm passionate about something. I'm highly creative. My squirrel creative brain is always going in a million different directions. I, you
Squirrel,
know,
squirrel.
yeah, I feel like, for me, I'm like ideas 10, execution 3. It's like I'm always thinking, oh, I want to do this and I want to try this. And I have like this little dream board with post-it notes on it of things I want to try out and learn. And then I think as a Gen Xer, and I'm sure you can relate, even though we're a little bit age difference, but, we were always encouraged to do it for yourself. And so, I've been trying to do all these things on my own for such a long time. And I think, okay, I need to recruit some help. I don't need to be an expert in all of these things. Let me hire an expert in some of these things to help me and give me a little guidance and to put me on the right path. So, yeah, I do have my days where I'm highly motivated, and other days I'm not. And I give myself grace on the days that I'm not, because I think that's the beauty of being able to do your own thing, is to not have to fake it on days when you just don't have it in the tank. And so when I don't have it in the tank, I try to fill up the tank in other ways and spend time and go for walks, take my pup out and have a good time and just cut myself a break. And then revisit it when the motivation comes back and kicks back in.
Is it possible you going for a walk is working?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it was a big
That
uh,
your brain gets worried.
yeah.
Spinning.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big thing that happened to me. I mean, so, conversation around walking sounds simple, but when I quit my corporate job and then I learned that my relationship was coming to an end, it was just a lot of tumult at once and a lot of change at once. And I started walking because I had to get out of the house. Number one, I needed to process a lot of what I was feeling. Number two, and it
Needed an
was
event.
time for,
Needed an
yeah,
event.
yeah, and it was time for me. I would listen to podcasts or listen to music or whatever. And I got a dog at the time, and so I started to take her on walks, and she was a motivator to get me out the door too. And it was good for, obviously, for my health, and I lost weight and all of those things, but it was so good just for the processing of emotions, because I think when a lot of change hits, we can become very stagnant. At least I can. I can shut down. A lot of people, they just rally. I don't. I tend to like get very inward. And so
You're a
getting
human
outside,
being. You're a human.
yeah, for sure. Getting outside and moving helped to move me forward in other ways mentally.
Yeah, it's, I'm a big believer in that. And I always like to say motivation is wonderful to get you started, but motivation inevitably wears off. And
Yeah,
that's when discipline kicks in.
for sure. Absolutely.
I mean, I get up every morning and I go for my walk. That's the
That's amazing.
first thing I do
Yeah.
every day after I stretch. But that's the first thing I do every day, and it's not negotiable.
Hmm.
I don't ask myself, am I going to go for a walk? Do I feel like going for a walk? Doesn't matter. And besides,
Right.
my dog wouldn't let me not go anyway. I mean, he you know,
Right. They'll be knocking at your door.
time to go. Let's go. Oh, you're
That's
up.
right.
Okay, let's go. Um, very enthusiastic. As we're wrapping this up, is there anything you want to add?
Oh, I mean, I just, I think, for anyone who's listening, it's so many times when people approach me, it's, where do I begin? And I think so much of it is really tapping into the things that you love. When I thought about what I wanted to create and the content I wanted to do and the things I wanted to do, I really tapped into reflecting on what parts of my job, my corporate job, did I love? What were the days that I felt really productive? You have those days you come back from work and you put your head on the pillow and you're like, damn, I killed it today.
And that was
And
fun. That was fun.
that was fun. Yeah. And I was like, when I coach people or when I do workshops, I always have them reflect on what are the things that you do in those days when you feel like you were really activated. Are you a numbers person? Did you love doing the reporting? Did you like putting together presentations? Did you teach something? Did you coach people? Like, what are the things that really light you up about the work that you do? And some of those things will be really good indicators for what you should lean into if you decide to create something for yourself. How can you cherry pick the things that you really love, that really motivate you and that make you feel productive and tapped in? It's that idea of just really connecting to superpowers. And how do we find what those are? Well, you find them by, taking note and journaling about today was a really good day at work. Why was it a good day at work? What was it about today that made me feel very accomplished and productive? And what did I do today? I wasn't on 17 Zoom calls. I was out teaching and coaching. Like, what were the days where I really felt the most connected to my work? And that helped me to really understand how I wanted my life to look and how I wanted my work to look. And so I started to write those job descriptions for myself.
You said you used the phrase superpowers.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a little secret with everybody. We all have superpowers.
That's right. It is. And I think so many people underestimate what theirs can be. And I think people can get hung up on big personality type of people only possessing those kind of things. We all have them. We're all influencers. We talk about this influencer culture. I'm like, we're all influencers. You're an influencer at your own dining room table. You're an influencer at your book club. You are influencing people to think or to speak or to learn or to whatever. And so, how do we use our voices as influential people to exact change and to help people feel better about themselves and teach people things? It's all part of it.
Absolutely. And it is your privilege to help people, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the best part of what I do. I mean, when I get little notes and DMs in my Instagram from women who are like, I've been following you and you're that little voice in my head encouraging me to do things I wouldn't have normally done for myself. That's the stuff for me. It's cute when they send me a picture of an outfit that was inspired by something they saw me wear, but it's the messages of there are moments in my life where I think, what would Jen do right now? What would Jen say? And that's when I know that I'm on the right track. And that's the legacy I was hoping to leave, not how to, do a smoky eye, but how to look in the mirror and feel really great about yourself or feel very activated or take chances or try something new that you wouldn't have normally done and be inspired to do those things. That's the stuff.
This has been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.